So today I will be explaining page 120 from our Ready Math instruction book. So as I was explaining in our Google Hangout video today, they're asking us for number 16 to say whether or not this equation is already linear. Is it linear, and is it written in this form y equals mx plus b? So y equals mx plus b. This equation already looks like this. And we know that this equation represents a linear function. So then the first equation is already linear. So we can say this one is already linear. To make it more clear that it's linear, you could actually rewrite this as y equals 2x plus -3. Now it's same equation, you just wrote it in a way that is more clear. For the second one, y minus 2 equals x plus 2. In order to put this into y equals mx plus b format, we have to add 2 to both sides to get y by itself. So these would cancel out, and now we would have y equals x plus 4. Now it's in y equals mx plus b format. For the last one, 3x equals 9 plus 3y. We would want to get the y to the left and the x to the right. So we're going to minus 3y on both sides. So now we have -3y plus 3x equals 9. We're going to subtract the 3x from both sides. Now we have -3y equals, these cancel out. We want to put the x in front, so we're going to have -3x plus 9. And then the last step will be to divide by -3 on both sides, so that we have y by itself over here. So we have y equals -3x divided by -3. -3 and -3 cancel out to 1. So we're just going to have x left over. We're going to have our plus because mx plus b. And then 9 divided by -3 is -3. So we're going to put in parentheses -3. It's a little messy. Okay, so can all of these equations be written in the form y equals mx plus b? Yes. And do we think that they are all linear? Yes. So we would say all equations are linear. All can be written as y equals mx plus b. That's what we should have. It's a little messy. Number 17. Alana used the table of values to find the slope of the graph for this function. Analyze her work and explain why you do or do not agree with her. Okay, so she used the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So, or well, you don't have to use these ones, right? We could use these. So if she used this one and this one, because she has 6, so then it should be 6 minus 5 and 6 minus 4. You don't go to the one, you don't skip one. She skipped one. So already from that, I can see that she has a mistake here because she didn't use the points right next to each other. So what we're going to do in order to correct her work is we're going to use these 2 points just because it's easier. So we would say y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is 4, divided by x2, which is 4, and x1, which is 2. And we can simplify. 5 minus 4 is 1. 4 minus 2 is 2. So the slope should be 1/2. Okay. Just from this, we know that she already made a mistake. Okay, so we can say she didn't use points that were right next to each other, or we could just say she made a mistake when she filled in her formula. She made a mistake using her slope formula. Okay. Number 18, explain how to find the slope and y-intercept by just looking at the equation y equals 1/3 x minus 2. Then graph the equation and verify your answers. So we have an equation we're going to want to plug in. So I'm going to fill this in. Y equals 1/3 x minus 2. I'm going to use the space here to make a table, x and y. Okay, so if my x here, let's just say, let's try 2. Minus 2. So 1/3. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing. Sorry. So let's try, we're going to put 2 in for x. So the first point I put was 2. If I put a 2 here, this gives me 2/3 minus 2. So 2/3 minus 2 would be 1 1/3. So then this would be 1 1/3. If I put in a 4 here, maybe I should, I don't know, well, maybe I should be using odd numbers. Let's try 3. That'll probably work out better for us. 3 1/3 minus 2. So 3 is our x, right? We're filling in for our x. So we're going to try 3. The next one we're trying is 3. So 3 times 1/3, that gives us 1. And then 1 minus 2 is -1. So here we should have -1. Then if we plug in, let's skip 4, let's try 6. Let's do multiples of 3, because then that way it'll come out to a whole number. So if we do 6, 6 times 1/3 minus 2. 6 times 1/3 is 2, and then 2 minus 2 equals 0. So we have 0 here. And then we'll do 9. 9 times 1/3 minus 2. I'm choosing these numbers. The first one I just tried a random number and it gave me a whole number and a fraction. So I realized that if I multiply by a number that can be divided by 3, then it'll give me a whole number. So then that's why I'm using multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9. 9 times 1/3 is 3. And then 3 minus 2 equals 1. So here I would have 9 and my y would be 1. Okay, so using these 3 points, I'm going to put them on the graph. So I have 3, -1. The graph goes by 2's, which is kind of different, but we have 3, -1. So here is my 2. Halfway between 2 and 4 would be about here. So that's my x is 3, and then -1. Next one is 6, 0. So at the 6, I'm at 0 on the y. And the next one is 9, 1. So I'm going to go over to where I think 9 would be and go up 1. Okay, this is my linear equation. This is my line. Okay, so far I have a table and I have a graph. They say explain how to find the slope and y-intercept just by looking at the equation, then graph the equation and verify your answers. Well, I came up with a table, I graphed it, and now I'm going to use the slope formula of m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to figure out if my slope matches what I have here. So I'm going to use this as my point 1. And my point 1 is 3, negative 1. This will be my point 2. And that is at 6, 0. Okay. And remember, our coordinates are always x, y. X first, then y. So then this would be our y1, and this is our x1. This here is our y2, and this is our x1. I'm going to label that actually. So this is x1 and y1. See that? And then this is going to be x2, y2. x2, y2. Okay, so now I can fill in this formula. Y2 is 0, and y1 is negative 1, so I'm going to put parentheses negative 1 over x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 3. And if we reduce this, so m equals, we reduce this, so 0 minus negative 1, we see a plus sign here, plus sign. That means that the top is going to be 1, the numerator, and then 6 minus 3, that's going to give us 3. So our slope, m, is going to be equal to 1/3. Now I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to see if that's true. So from point 1, do I go up by 1? Because remember, rise over run. So do I go up by 1? Yes. Do I go over by 3? 1, 2, 3. Yes, I do. So this slope is correct. This slope matches what I have on my graph. It also matches what I have over here in this equation. So just by looking at this equation, I should have said, oh yeah, the slope is 1/3, and my y-intercept is going to be negative 2. So then we can check that on our graph as well. Are we going to have a point at negative 2? Yes, we are. You can see that the line goes through that. So we have our point at the on the y-axis at negative 2. So we have been able to verify by showing our work. We did a table, we got slope formula, we did a graph, that this equation, from this equation, we know that slope equals 1/3 and y-intercept equals negative 2. Okay. On page 121, the first one says, 19 says, use what you have learned to complete this task. Show how to find the slope of a line that passes through the points in the table. So here you're going to want to use that slope formula. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And once you do that, then you just write what the slope is based on this equation. For part B, it says graph the data in the table. Using the graph, show how to find the slope in a different way than you did in part A. Now that you have the slope, you can graph these dots here and double check if the slope matches based on the rise and the run and explain that. So you basically just have to graph these dots here and then explain what the slope is by looking at the points. And then for part C, it says show how to write an equation for the table and graph. Verify that the equation works with the table and graph. Now that you have the graph and you have the table, you should be able to figure out what the y-intercept is from both the table and the graph, and you have your slope here from the formula. You have to write an equation and then explain how you wrote it, basically. So this page is your homework today. I want you guys to take a picture of it once you have it completed and email it to me if you can. If you have any questions about how to do that, go ahead and ask me via Google Hangout.